Hi, I'm Amy from Select Travel Holidays, home of Cruise Select, and thank you for joining me on a virtual tour of Bolette, Fred Olsen's new flagship. Bolette and her sister Borealis were bought last year from Holland America Line, where they were respectively called Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and part of Holland America Line's Rotterdam or R-Class, so it's nice to see that they remain sisters. Borealis was built in 1999 and Bolette a year later in 2000. And they started service for Fred's this summer, marking Fred Olsen's return to cruising since the voluntary suspension in March 2020. While Borealis was named after the famous Northern Lights phenomenon, something that you can enjoy on various cruises with Fred Olsen, especially in their native Norway, Bolette was named after an Olsen family matriarch, the chairman Fred Olsen Jr.'s great-great-grandmother, which I think is also a nice reminder that this is a family company after all. Rachel and I had the opportunity to cruise on board Bolette recently, and there was also a magical moment on our cruise when Bolette met her sister Borealis somewhere off the Spanish coast, and there were horns blaring in joy and guests waving at each other and taking photos and videos of the happy moment. They're near identical, so what you'll see in this tour will give you a pretty damn good idea of what to expect in Borealis, although perhaps one marked difference is that Borealis doesn't have a pool at the aft of the Lido deck, and some restaurants may have different names, like the Bloomsbury and Terrace restaurants on Bolette are the equivalent of the Aurora and Borealis restaurants on Borealis, but essentially it's potato. Bolette and Borealis will be joined by existing Fred's favourites Balmoral and Braemar next year when they return to service from the spring. Although I must admit it was sad to see Blackwatch and, for me especially, Boudica leave last year. And in many ways, these new sisters mark quite an exciting new step for Fred Olsen, with new features that we'll see on our tour. They're certainly larger than current and previous Fred ships at 62,735 gross tonnes, which is 1.4 times previous flagship Balmoral's 43,537 gross tonnes, and over 2.5 times Didi Little Braemar's 24,344 gross tonnes. Some Fred's traditionalists could be forgiven for raised eyebrows, but Fred Olsen have not increased their passenger capacity in line with the gross tonnage afforded by the new ships, remaining level with Balmoral at about 1,330 guests, meaning that they simply boast more space for guests, and some exciting new options for venues, as we'll see. They still manage to retain the famous small ship friendliness and personal service that Freds have a distinctive flair for. So let's dive in now with our tour and take a look at the public areas, some ubiquitous on all Fred's fleet and some unique to Bolette and Borealis. Bolette has 10 decks, but you'll find most of the public areas that we'll be looking at on this tour are on decks 4, 5, 8 and 9, while decks 1 to 3 and 6 and 7 are purely for accommodation, with the exception of course of some facilities such as guest laundry rooms on decks 3 and 6 and the medical centre on deck 1, all of which I must admit I usually try to avoid on a cruise. On this tour we'll focus on the public areas such as bars and lounges, swimming pools and other leisure facilities, including the entertainment, guest services and a little look at the dining venues on board. If you'd like to take a closer look at the onboard accommodation, we've got a video tour for you showing a variety of cabin categories, including several suites, which also feature on their own video. We'll also take a brief look at restaurants, but if you want something more in-depth, we do also have other video tours focusing solely on the dining venues, including specifically on the specialty dining offered on Bolette and Borealis. So let's start our tour with the striking Astrolabe, which is one of the first things that seems to take your notice once you embark. It took 15 years to design and was once fully functioning, and is 3 stories tall. Surrounding it on deck 4 you'll find reception and shore excursions. Also on deck 4, near the Astrolabe and guest services etc., you'll find the photo gallery or the wall of shame with my photos on it. We are deck 5 amidships. The very top of the Astrolabe can be found here. But behind there is the Future Cruise desk. They have the same deals that we have, but if you book on board you can save yourself an additional 5%, and the booking gets passed straight to us. Already on this cruise we've had some of our clients, they booked on board and we got the email confirmation immediately. So
you'll still be booking, we'll still be looking after your booking, but if you book on board, you get an additional 5%.
Now we've admired the Astrolabe and found out where to find reception and destination services, as well as future cruises on Deck 5, the first place I usually head to when I embark on a cruise, after checking out my cabin of course, is out on deck near the pool or the bar. On Bolette, that means heading to Deck 8, the Lido deck.
So here I am now on Deck 8. So here is called the Lido deck, and we have, by my side, we've got a couple of jacuzzis. We have the main pool. There's actually 2 on board Bolette. But actually one of the key features that's, again, new to Fred's, is that this pool area here has a retractable roof. It has been fully retracted in sunnier times of this cruise, but now, as today's weather has been not brilliant and we're heading back to the UK, it's fully covered. So it means that people can actually enjoy being outside, but not outside by the main pool. There's also a lovely bar area. And there's also the poolside cafe, which is one of my favourite places to eat. It's open 10 till 7, and they actually start with some really lovely late risers meals. I'm particularly fond of the poached eggs with avocado and the eggs benedict and the peach sundae. And I tend to go here almost every morning for my breakfast, to be honest. What's often especially popular on the pool deck is there's a bandstand, the onboard band, sort of string quartet trio, sometimes I'm going to call them, play out by the pool, and it is really lovely, and it's been fabulous sitting by, perhaps having lunch at the poolside cafe and hearing other guests really enjoy themselves. You can tell they just really love the atmosphere, they're enjoying the music that the band's playing, and they often get an encore. So like I say, it's just lovely witnessing people enjoy themselves. It feels like a long time since we've been able to share that. Deck 8 forward is where you'll find the spa and fitness centre. So fitness centre, you'll have some classes. It's really quite spacious actually. There's plenty of equipment, weights, etc. Obviously you get a view of what's happening outside the ship. And of course you've got all sorts of spa treatments which are lovely, including your massages, all that sort of stuff, but also you can beautify yourself either at the hairdressers or the beauty treatments such as a manicure, pedicure, etc. Mum and I had the luxury pedicures the other day, and I must say it was heavenly. I felt like a human feet again after so long.
In addition to the Atlantis Spa, a feature across the fleet, there's a Turkish bath-style thermal suite exclusive to Bolette and Borealis, with steam rooms and a mineral bath. Access to the thermal suite is chargeable from £10 per person or £17 for a couple for a single day pass, and 7 or 14-day passes are also available if you're perhaps on a longer cruise or you really like to luxuriate, as well as a 120-minute pamper package or total bliss package for 150 minutes, which offers spa treatments combined with thermal suite access and a glass of champagne, orange juice and canapes if you really like to indulge. These packages can also be enjoyed alone or as a couple. From beauty therapy to retail therapy, our tour now takes us to the onboard shops on Bolette, where we head to Deck 5 for the port shop, where you can find the handy essentials that you might have forgotten to pack, or perhaps some books if you've already gone through the ones you took with you. You'll also find the boutiques on this deck, close by the Morning Light pub, which we'll see later. And in these boutiques you can buy designer handbags and perfumes, and even casual or evening wear if you fancy a new outfit. There's also the jewellery shop, and the flower shop, which you can find across the Fred Olsen fleet, where you can buy either a pre-arranged bouquet or create your own from beautiful year-round and seasonal flowers to add a bit of colour and fragrance to your cabin, or pick a single stem to provide the finishing touch for formal night. Finally, in terms of the onboard facilities on our tour, we have the library and card room, both of which can be found on Deck 5 near the Bookmark Cafe, which we'll be looking at when we look at bars and lounges. There's plenty of space in the library to sit and enjoy a book, and the nearby card room has plenty of card tables, with bridge being a particularly popular game on board. You can also develop some of your bridge skills with bridge tuition on offer on some cruises.
So here we have the Bookmark Cafe on Deck 5. It's a very popular venue. It's where you get some lovely specialty teas and coffees, and of course some of Fred's famous sweet treats. You can also buy some lovely, handmade truffles made on board, and you can also bring home a lovely gift for your loved ones so that they can have a taste of the Bookmark Cafe as well. This venue was introduced on the fleet a few years ago. I forget exactly the year, but it's actually, like I say, a very popular venue. The passengers really enjoy. But it's also part of the library as well, so you'll often find people enjoying sitting down, perhaps looking out to sea, maybe not so much today because of the weather, with a nice book in their hands.
So here we are in another of the bar or lounges area. This one is the Oriental Tea Room. Yesterday during a day at sea they had sort of demonstration of rare teas. But as you can see, it's a very beautiful room, ornately, richly decorated in the Oriental style. But it's also where you can get some lovely sort of your black teas, your white teas, etc. So here there is a really delightful range of teas, which are roughly about say £2.60, £2.85, etc. So there's black teas, oolong teas, green teas, white teas. I feel like a Dr. Seuss book at the moment. Herbal infusions, fancy this. There's some lovely alcoholic cocktails that are only £6.25, which, for example, there is the tropical tea. So it's infused tea mixed with alcohol, which sounds quite interesting. So the Oriental Tea Room was again introduced on board all the fleet, and it's actually quite nice to see. A few years ago, it's quite nice to see people actually sort of sitting in the area, because I think sometimes on, particularly Boudica, it wasn't as much part of an open plan, so it's perhaps a bit shut away. I think it was, if I recall correctly, perhaps quite close to the Neptune Lounge, and it would often get bypassed. So it's actually nice to see that there are people in about. You can just order whenever. And like I say, we did have the rare tea demonstration yesterday, which looked quite interesting when I was trying to sneak a peek.
So one of the bars that is unique to Bolette and Borealis is the piano bar, which on here is Deck 5 midship. So as you might be able to tell, that way, I think towards the aft was the Bookmark Cafe and the Oriental Tea Room. Here midship you've got the piano bar. As you can see, I mean obviously because of COVID people actually can't sit on the bars, but once it's all over and done with, I'm sure lots of people would enjoy sitting by the piano, because he does do evening performances. So it's a really interesting concept. So the bar's just there. It's got quite a sort of a New York sort of feel to it, and it's a unique bar to Bolette and Borealis.
So here we are in another Deck 5 bar. This is actually pretty much right next to the piano bar. And this is a feature on every single Fred Olsen ship, which you might be able to recognise with the same portrait that is in every single one of these bars on a Fred Olsen ship, which is the portrait of the They were actually the original three Olsen brothers who set up the shipping business. So the however many times grandfathers, great uncles of the current Fred Olsen Jr. So this is of course the Morning Light pub. It's very much more open plan on this ship, but you can recognise it with regards to sort of the comfortable leather style furnishings, and like I say, the ubiquitous Fred Olsen portrait, and it's, you know, the quizzes, especially the evening one at 10 p.m, is very popular. And actually, what's quite a nice feature on this particular ship, this particular Morning Light pub, is that there's a lovely sort of fake bar. It really gives a nice, you know, homey, cosy feel. So perhaps quite unusually, like I say, this is quite an open plan Morning Light pub. Sometimes they're a bit more sectioned off as a separate room. You've also got some of the shops literally lining the outside of the Morning Light pub, so that's a little bit different. And now for a final bar on deck 5, the lounge deck.
So it's the Ocean Bar. As you can see, possibly, they are doing carpet bowls behind me. You know, traditional cruising activity. Here you'll also find live music at times, and it's the bar that's closest to the Neptune Theatre on deck 5.
There are 8 bars and lounges on board Bolette, and of course Borealis as well. And we've seen that most, such as the Bookmark Cafe and Lounge, the Oriental Tea Room, Piano Bar, Morning Light Pub and the Ocean Bar, can be found on deck 5, which is unsurprisingly called the lounge deck. Earlier we also saw the Lido Bar by the main pool up on deck 8, and that's where we're going to head up to now, to the aft of the Lido deck, where we find Bolette's second swimming pool, the smokers area on the starboard side, and the sea view bar. Although Borealis doesn't have a second pool here, it does still have the sea view bar. It's quite a small, discreet bar tucked away at the side, but its bartending staff make sure that those relaxing by the aft pool have their thirsts quenched. During our cruise, we enjoyed an evening party out by the aft pool in the sea view bar, with one of the resident bands providing music and entertainment. We're on deck 9, the sports deck. On the aft side there is something called the studio, but at this point in time no decisions have actually been made as to what that's going to be, so that's something to look out for. And of course now I am currently forward, so that means we're in the observatory bar. Obviously from here you do have lovely panoramic views currently of very grey sea and grey sky, but it's not looking too rough just yet, so fingers crossed. So here you will have the White Glove afternoon tea service that they do a couple of times on a cruise. They also do the dance classes here. Obviously with COVID it's had to be socially distanced, which is quite interesting, so they're quite limited in the steps they can teach us. It's only really the steps that don't necessarily require actually being in hold. But it's been enjoyable from what we've done. There is a band that plays here every night called Status. I think it's pretty much every night, most nights, and they're very popular. So yes, of course, a cruise ship always has to have an observatory.
So here we are in the Neptune Theatre. We are deck 5 forward, but also it's available deck 4 forward. So in a first for Fred Olsen, the Neptune Theatre is actually 2-tiered, with access both on decks 5 and 4. And it is obviously, you know, the place where you have your shows, the big ones they do of an evening, you know, sort of the cruise theatre company and lectures, etc. Here behind me is actually the entrance to the auditorium. This is another new concept on Fred Olsen, and it's basically a culinary studio where you can watch the chef cook up various dishes that you can enjoy anywhere on board. You learn how to make them and you get to sample them at the end. They're on every day about 10 a.m. Whether you're at shore or sea day, so it's great to see. I've been to one of them. Hopefully I might try and get to the final two, depending on how kind the seas are. But yeah, it's a great concept, and I really love actually how it's set out. And I would personally suggest that particular sea days, maybe adding an afternoon one, because it's good fun, and it's great to see the chefs at work and discover the secrets of their cooking.
Finally, our tour ends with dining venues. You can find out more about dining on board Bolette in our foodie-specific video tours, including one focusing solely on specialty dining on board. We've seen how Bolette and Borealis have unique features such as a retractable roof above the main pool on deck 8 and a two-tiered theatre. And the main dining room is also two tiers for the very first time on Fred's. On Bolette, the main dining rooms are called Bloomsbury on deck 4, which is open for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and the terrace on deck 5, which is available only for dinner. On Borealis, they're called the Borealis and Aurora restaurants respectively. Eventually, Fred Olsen will introduce anytime dining for the very first time, which will be enjoyed upstairs in the terrace or the Aurora restaurants, while traditionalists who prefer to keep to the first or second sitting for dinner will eat downstairs on deck 4. There will be a further, more intimate option for main dining, similar to the Avon and Spey restaurants on Balmoral and the Grampian on Braemar, which will be the Orchid Room on Bolette and the Indian Ocean Room on Borealis. Both of these restaurants can be found on deck 5 aft on the starboard side near the main restaurant. For a casual buffet experience, there's a view up on deck 8 between the main pool and the aft. But as I mentioned earlier, you can also order late riser breakfasts and delicious light bites at the poolside cafe, also on deck 8. There will very soon be 3 specialty restaurants on board Bolette and Borealis when a Scottish estate-inspired steak restaurant, the Forest Room, opens on deck 5 aft on the port side, which will be between the Terrace or Aurora restaurants and the Bookmark Cafe. But you can currently enjoy delicious Goan dishes in Vasco near the view on deck 8, as well as Asian fusion cuisine in Colours and Tastes on deck 4. Both of these restaurants require reservation, and currently the cover charge for Colours and Tastes is £5 per person, although this will likely increase somewhat. But having eaten there 3 times myself and sampled an absolute smorgasbord of incredible starters, never mind the delicious main course and side dishes, you definitely get plenty of bang for your buck there. Vasco has just one menu which remains the same throughout the cruise, but Colours and Taste does have alternating menus, so it's well worth returning to sample the different dishes on offer. Well, thank you for joining me on this tour of Bolette. I hope it's given you an idea of what to expect on board Fred Olsen's new flagship and her sister Borealis, of course, whether you're a first timer of Fred's or you're familiar with the rest of the fleet. I think there's a fantastic mix of Fred's favourites, which may be slightly enhanced with the space and feel of the new ship, and some brand new features which I think represent quite exciting opportunities and a new step forward for Fred Olsen. So thank you for your time, and if you'd like to find out more, then give our team a call or an email.